Good evening. This is the Public Works Committee of the City of Hudson. We're meeting January 9th at 5 p.m. And I'm going to call the roll this evening. Mike Kennedy.
Here.
Sarah Brook.
Here.
And I am Joy Knudsen from District 3. And so we have all of our council members here. We are also joined by our Public Works Director, Mike Mraz, this evening. So first item is to review the minutes. Does anyone have any comments or additions or changes to the minutes from the last meeting?
I did have one clarification. I noticed, I think was at the end of this, or in that second to the last paragraph, it mentioned this lot at the fire station saying 3 hours. Is that a 4-hour parking, or was that just related to the holidays? That was my only clarification I had seen.
I will double check.
Well, I remember that discussion. Is the entire lot?
I think it's 4 hours.
It's
4 hours.
And it says 3.
It says 3 in the minutes.
Thank you. Thanks for catching that.
Yep.
Okay.
Sure.
That was the only correction I would make.
Yep.
So it's going to be consistent throughout the whole lot. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll move to approve the minutes
Your second?
with that change.
And I will second that.
Okay, we have a first and a second to accept the minutes from the prior meeting with one change. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, minutes are approved. Thank you. So we have some time now for comments or suggestions from any citizens present. And I know we do have some people here today, but perhaps we'll have you speak during an agenda item that applies to you, if that's okay. Anyone else here that has a comment for the committee? Okay, so taking up our first item under new business, discussion and possible action to permit development of the city right-of-way at 115 Commercial Street.
All right, so the owners of the property at 115 Commercial Street approached the city of Hudson to install infrastructure in the right-of-way to coincide with the potential business that's going in there. And seeing that it is within city right-of-way, I wanted to bring it forward to Public Works Committee for you to review and to discuss and ask any questions that you might have. Like Joy said, there is representation here from the ownership group. And so if you have any questions of them for this project, they're here to answer any questions. So the basic premise of the project is to add curb and gutter and sidewalk on the south side of the building. If you're familiar with this area, it is, okay, are you familiar with this area too? Okay, so I don't have to go into detail about that. Along with adding that to in the right-of-way, they would also look to place some planters as well. And the reason being, there is concern from the community development department with the type of business going in here, trying to corral the users in a location where they're not spilling out onto the street, to kind of keep them, in an area so that we don't have any traffic safety concerns, pedestrian, vehicular traffic conflicts in the future. So that is the overall extent of the project. The south curb line is basically, the new proposed south curb line is basically where the existing driveway apron or curb and gutter is. There is a photo attached to the issue sheet that kind of gives you a view of what that looks like right now. And so what we would look to do is have the user fill out and complete the work within the right-of-way permit that we have in the city for this type of construction. And then I'd also like to maybe recommend drafting an agreement with the user, just explaining, that they will follow the city specifications, that this cost is borne 100% by the property owner, so on and so forth. That would be reviewed by the city attorney and then forwarded on to Common Council. So okay. With that, I will turn it over for your questions that you might have.
Yeah, I just have a couple quick questions. So one is more of a historical one. Was there ever a sidewalk on that side? I mean, because the cars that park on the east side of that, and then it's never been a comfortable street to walk up and down. So I kind of welcome that change. I guess the other question is the parking. It's almost, I don't even know what's there right now. Is it?
There's about 4 spaces on what would be the east side.
Yep.
We're actually eliminating one of those Medford.
Okay.
Excuse me, if you wouldn't mind, just so we would enjoy talking with you, would one of you mind coming to the podium, whoever cares to?
Yeah.
And if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, just
Yeah.
partly it's for the record.
Yep,
too, for-
Grady Erickson on behalf of, it's actually 401, 403 Second Street. We also own the adjacent property, so that is a shared, what would be kind of a parking lot currently. I agree with you, Mike, that it is interesting to get in and out of there.
Yeah.
So after talking to Mike here a couple weeks ago, we decided that it would be best to kind of make it conform with an actual sidewalk, contain the entrance, and it's my understanding that eventually down the line, hopefully, Commercial Street is set to get completely reconstructed
Yep.
with utilities and everything. So we're trying to do our best to plan for those now. So yeah, currently it's a shared parking lot
Shared
with
parking.
the Seasons Art Gallery and the Ember Bean Roasting.
And will those parking spaces stay the same?
We're eliminating one of them to make for an actual entrance.
Okay?
And there has been some discussion about there's a vacant space in the 401 building, and depending on what use goes in there, there's been some discussion about possibly making that more of a courtyard type.
I was wondering if it had some patio type of seating?
Yeah. But right now, our plan, just to get this project started, is to have it be more of a walk-in, walk-out, go down, enjoy the park. There's not going to be any kind of seating indoors.
Okay, that was my other question.
Yep. So it's all, we're going to try to get people down to the lakefront to enjoy the river and
Nice.
the great downtown.
So I do have a question. I'm not, and Grady, I don't think this is for you, but thanks for being here. Mike, if Mike Mraz, it is hard when there's two Mikes here. Mike Mraz, if they do these improvements
Yeah.
and when ultimately it does Commercial Drive or Commercial Street gets upgraded or enhanced, will the upgrades that they're doing, will they be okay, or will you have to redo them again?
Well, I think kind of Grady alluded to that. They're going to try and construct it in a way that in the future we won't have to touch that. But that is something that we will want to identify in the agreement if that was to
Okay.
happen. Because they're going to, obviously, per the assessment policy right now, all the improvements are 100%
At their
being covered by them.
expense.
I don't want to come back 3 years later,
Right.
tear it up, and then charge them another 100%. That doesn't seem fair to them, right?
Right.
So obviously, something along the lines of spelling out if the city has to remove a section of curb and gutter for the reconstruction of Commercial Street, that the city will pay for the reinstallation of that because they did pay for the initial 100%.
Okay.
Because I don't think it's good practice to have them put the initial cost in and then 2 years later rip it up and then say, "Oh, here, pay for it again."
Perfect. I
Good
agree.
point. And I'm still referring to our trustee sheet with our proposed
Yeah.
projects coming up. And if I'm not mistaken, we're hoping and expecting in 2024, we might be working
Yeah.
major redo on that street.
Yep.
If that, as that project
that-
moves forward there.
Yep.
So that's where you're tying in your comment. That's a good.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we retain the right of way, the city does.
It's basically no different than any other right-of-way within the city with a
Okay.
sidewalk in front of it. Any downtown
Gotcha.
business, the sidewalk's in the right-of-way, so on and so forth. It's just, it's a unique situation next to the alleyway. There's no sidewalk there. They're, putting in this brand-new curb and gutter type patio in front of their business. So I just wanted to bring it in front of your eyes to get your eyes on it,
Yep.
so that you're not surprised and like, oh, how come who approved this type of thing?
And will Plan Commission be weighing in on any of this, or have they already?
I don't,
Have you been before the Plan Commission yet?
okay.
Okay.
So I think the initial step was Public Works Committee comfortable with allowing them to improve the right-of-way.
Okay.
That's the first step. Then they can go back, make the plans based on your recommendations, and then that would go into their designs, which would be submitted to Planning Commission, and then forwarded on to council from there. So this is kind of the first step in the process.
I'm comfortable with that, so I'll go ahead and make a motion, and then if there's more discussion, I would like to I make a motion to direct staff to draft an agreement between the City of Hudson and the owners of 115 Commercial to develop a city right-of-way and to forward this agreement on to Common Council following review of the city attorney.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first and second to adopt the recommended action with the City of Hudson and the owners of 115 Commercial Street. Any further discussion? Well, I have one question. Are you going to sell gelato? Because I'm putting in a request. Just teasing. No, wish you the best with your business. Okay. I'm teasing, but thank you. We're happy. We're happy that that spot is going to be developed. That'll be wonderful. Okay, so let's vote on this motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. That motion's carried. Very good. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, second new business item is discussion and possible action to purchase new holiday decorations in the amount of $13,558.
All right, so this is in front of the Public Works Committee based on some feedback that I received from this previous holiday season. The strands hanging across 2nd Street were 20-plus years old and were beginning to fail, and we found multiple faults with it, and ultimately we couldn't repair them. So I had my foreman reach out to our holiday decoration supplier that we typically go through to get costs on purchasing new strands to go across 2nd Street, and then as long as we are doing that, to update some of the other poles that have old decorations on them that we've been having trouble with throughout the year. And then as he was on the phone with the sales rep, they also recommended, because some of the older decorations have older bulbs, to upgrade everything to LED so it all looks uniform through downtown. So with all that being said, the quote to do all of that was $13,558. And we would pay for this expense out of the room tax dollars that the city collects. Current balance is approximately $35,000 per the finance director.
Okay.
And the new lights that were on the light poles down there this year, that's not part of this. That's already been,
Correct. That came
Paid
out
for.
of Public Works operating.
okay.
Yep. Yep.
And those were newly purchased this year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. That was a scramble to try to appease individuals, to show them that we're trying to do something for downtown because we didn't have the lights going across 2nd
Yeah.
Street.
They really look pretty. I mean,
Yeah.
Sure.
they do.
One thing I've noticed in my holiday decorating is there's different colors of white. Are you going to try to, I mean, some people like warm, some people like the cooler white, but it'd probably be nice if they're consistent. Will we
Yes.
be able to achieve that?
That's kind of what I'm going for, is just
Yeah.
have one, whether it's warm or soft, just have one consistent throughout the entire downtown. That's
Sounds
what we're
good.
striving for.
So that's what we'll be able
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
That'll look nice. That'll be great.
I'll move to approve.
And I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and second to approve purchase of holiday decorations for the downtown corridor. We'll be using the funds from the room tax dollars for the amount of $13,558. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And that motion is carried. In the next item, excuse me, discussion, possible action to use unallocated ARPA funds in the amount of $326,140.63 towards street improvements. Just to give a little recap, there at our council meeting last week, we had a report on the funds that have been, so these are federally provided funds, relief funds related to the pandemic. And previous councils have voted on spending, and some items have already been purchased for public safety and other items. And after the current things were mentioned and voted, there was still some additional funds. So the council determined that that money should be spent. We're all aware of the shortfall that we wish we had more money to spend on our infrastructure improvements. And so that decision was made. So this is some extra funding that we have the opportunity to put to good use. And so Mike, our Public Works Director, has come up with some options and recommendations for us.
Yep. So Aaron Reeves, city administrator, had reached out to me and said, Mike, can you put together a list for consideration to put these money towards? And it had to stay within the budget. the $326,000. So that narrowed down a lot of the streets that were available to, reclaim or reconstruct. And then B, I had to come up with streets that didn't have any underground utility cost to it, just because that jacks the price way up. So what I did was the first thing I did is I went on our Whistler program, and I basically looked at what are our worst roads in towns, the ones with the worst PACER ratings, and that's basically 1 or 2. And the ones listed on your sheet, Dominion Drive is a 2, Prailes Trail is a 2, Malibu Drive is a 2, Fillmore Street is a 3. So any one of those streets, you can't do all of them, but just one of those streets would be able to be, reconstructed using that $326,000. So obviously you don't have to stick with what's listed on the issue sheet. If you have questions or want to maybe propose a different section of streets throughout the community, feel free to do so. I did bring a worksheet along that was put together by Dean Chamberlain, our former city engineer, that kind of just lists all the streets and kind of what he was thinking the appropriate maintenance method was for that, whether it's mill and overlay, reclaim, surface reconstruction, or full reconstruction. So if you list a street, let's just say First Street, he was thinking of mill and overlay. So at least you kind of have an idea of he was thinking full reconstruction, where anything full reconstruction is not going to be able to be used.
Right.
The ARPA money is not going to be able to go towards. So with that being said, I'll open it up for discussion, and then we'll go from there. I think the idea is to put together, I'll leave it open-ended. If you want to select one street to bring forward to council for them to ponder on, we can do it that way. If you want to bring a couple, if you want to bring 3 or 4 that want them to consider, I think it's just more of having a discussion here, getting everybody on the same table here, bringing it forward to council for them to do a final approval on. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, and I appreciate you doing this homework, because it's, as we saw in our last city council meeting, I felt that put you, not only your position, but it was never personal to you, but it's like, it seemed, if you just dip your toe in this, you say, I know 5 streets that are worse than these. And then now you're the genius on road, construction. So, I always want to defer with you, and we talked about meeting as a bigger group, talk about how we choose priorities and how it gets spent. Because you talk about all the moving targets. There could be a road that's really bad, but it's very expensive. There could be a road that's not as bad, but we want to prolong it. I happen to notice on these particular streets, I guess I'll preface by saying I don't have a pet list in my back pocket of streets that I need. I do notice that all these are, I'm familiar with most of them. They seem to be somewhat minor streets, as in not,
and I think
a lot
that's
of using it, but maybe that's why we've been neglecting them for so long.
correct. I think it comes back to the usage portion. The city historically hasn't spent money on these roads because the average daily traffic isn't high on them, right?
Yeah.
And so now they're basically, they haven't been maintained, they haven't been replaced, and they're just to a point now where, it is what it is. But I think that's the reason why we're at where we're at.
Yeah.
But this level of input on whatever street we choose would really bring it up to a good level.
Yeah.
Where then it can be maintained with the chip seal and
Correct.
seal coating and things like that going
Correct.
forward. So then it's easier to maintain once we've invested this additional.
And that was kind of my thought when I was putting together this list is, all right, we always talk about the worst of the worst, and it's always hard to justify doing them because of the usage, right? And we were fortunate enough to have some remaining monies from ARPA, and here's an opportunity to let's just pick one of these things off and get it off our list. And then, so that's kind of where I was coming from. Obviously, nothing is set in stone, and I'm open to any opinions that you might have.
Well, I follow that, because there is, again, that the idea that it's not maybe the busiest street, but, whoever lives at the end of, pick any of these, they pay property tax like the rest of us do. And it doesn't mean that, because their road isn't traveled much, that we can just, kick it down the road for 10 more years. There's that balance. We represent people on busy streets and not busy streets too, so.
Right.
And I do think about, of these, which is probably the busiest of them and has the greatest usage and potential for issues. And I think about what's related to our schools, and where those are getting used. And like Mike, I've been on all of these roads, and these do seem like good choices. And but hearing that Fillmore is a 3 and those other ones are a 2.
Yeah.
But I know Fillmore is the one that gets driven a lot for the high school,
Yeah.
and I know
On a hill.
it's on a hill.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes it a challenge.
Right. That number helps inform our decisions.
Yeah.
There's a lot of factors. I wanted to ask you, because I know before we've talked about Fillmore and Oak, if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken, and that was really a big ticket item. Is there some parts of it that do need full rebuild?
Yeah.
But not this chunk, doesn't?
Oak Street needs the full reconstruction, because right now there's no curb and gutter, there's no pedestrian accommodations. That one's that's a $5 to $6 million project. Where the road listed here is Fillmore Street, so that's where it tees into Oak and 12th.
Sure.
Going down the hill a block, so it would improve obviously, surface reconstruction, so, we look at curb and gutter, the surface. We don't really have to do any stormwater just because we use the natural grade there to channel the stormwater. No underground utilities, water sanitary would be replaced, so that's why we would look to do that one block.
Here's a cost savings question for you. If we do Fillmore now, and then we do Oak, or even that 9th Street and that's Oak is probably the one that makes the best sense. Would it be more cost efficient to save Fillmore to do it that same time? Or, are we talking a long way away? Yeah, okay. It's hard to call.
Yeah.
That's a hard
My
question.
gut feeling is, I think we're a long way away from Oak Street, to be
Okay.
honest with you, unless we get some type of grant funding
Yeah.
from the state, because it is next to a school, so you might have a good, we got the grant for Vine Street on the south side of the high school, right? That was a grant from Wisconsin up
Oh, it
to,
was?
down to
Okay.
9th Street, yep. Like I said, you're talking $5 to $6 million just for that one project alone, so.
Yeah.
I don't foresee it happening anytime soon. Having said that, I think that we take that future development, our future reconstruction into consideration when we're designing the Fillmore, if that's the one that is chosen, to make sure that we design it and construct it in a way that in the future, if we do ever redo Oak Street or 12th Street, that it can just be incorporated within the Fillmore Street reconstruction.
To put in perspective, just for anyone who might be listening or watching, we're coming off prior years of the city spending roughly $1.3 million, or budgeting that amount for expense on street maintenance. And recently, we voted through the CIP and budgeting process this fall to increase that amount considerably. So it's, 2.5, is that what we landed on? 2.5 million will be going forward, nonetheless, to have an additional $326,000 is a significant,
I think it's
5.2.
I think it's actually just 2 million the first year,
First 2 years.
first 2
Oh, beg your
years.
pardon, thank you for correcting me.
Yeah.
Yep. And then 2.5 and.
Yeah.
Then it goes up.
25,
Thank you,
yep.
Sarah. You're right. So we've increased this significantly, but yet this is a nice extra chunk of money. It does make a difference because these projects are so expensive, and sometimes, as you pointed out, people might be wondering, why did we select that street? Why is that getting worked on? Well, some of the grant applications have been specified to a certain street because that's the nature of the funding formula from the federal and also state level, where they're looking for a project that fits a little niche, and that we've been successful in receiving some of those. So then that is, of course, motivating that we would fund the complementary amount to do that, and so that does drive our decision-making too. So again, this is an opportunity here with some of these additional ARPA funds, so I think it's, we've all, as you said, we had a council meeting in which, some questions were raised about decision-making and spending, and I think our group here has learned a lot in the last year, last spring. we were discussing whether we would spend $600,000 or $800,000 on a bike trail, pedestrian bike trail, that of course didn't come to pass for several reasons, but I think we all have learned a lot in that perspective on really how can we make this money go as far as we can. And I do think it'll be good to discuss in more depth with the council, because so many things come before the general council and vote yes or no, and they take our recommendations, and legitimately there's questions about the decision making. So I think it'll be a good process to go forward.
I agree too, and I know this is a little off topic, but I also think there's a safety component to it too. So
Yes.
that's where it does make sense that it's being
We all,
involved.
right, because
Yeah.
like you had mentioned before, we've talked about several times about those safety decisions. So
Yeah.
absolutely setting aside some extra time for the full council will be good.
Yep.
So,
And maybe that's an appropriate place to discuss using the ARPA funds towards street reconstruction, or towards a project. I guess what I'm getting at is if you don't feel comfortable recommending a street or certain streets here tonight, maybe you just forward along this discussion to the special meeting.
do you
I don't
think
know.
that's coming up soon? I mean, we don't have to worry about getting bids right away.
No, because we would, to be honest with you, if we were, let's see, we have until what did Aaron say the other night? Was it 2024 or 2025 to use those ARPA funds?
Yeah, I thought it was 25.
Okay.
Don't quote me, but that's
Yeah.
what I remember him saying.
Okay,
We would have to do topo work, design work. I mean, we can't do topo work
Gotcha.
until, the snow melts.
Thank you.
Design work. So, I mean, the good thing about these projects, other than Fillmore's a little more unique in that it's more surface reconstruction, but like Dominion, Prales, Malibu, those are all like reclaim. So to put those plans together, we can turn around pretty quick, and you can actually bring a contractor in later on this summer and fall, and they could take care of that pretty easily.
I'm really open to considering all four of these, and I do think it does make sense to maybe just say that I know I'm in favor of using the ARPA funds for this to address infrastructure, and maybe having us talk about this with everybody. Unless, if somebody has strong feelings tonight on a road, I certainly would entertain a motion too.
But I follow what you're saying. One quick question. So you have a list of 1 through 4 here.
Yeah.
Are those in any
No in
kind of
particular
rank?
order.
Okay. Or alphabetical?
not alphabetical.
Not alphabetical, I looked at that.
That would have made sense, huh?
And,
We did look at that.
and this
26.
326, is it pick 2 out of the 4? I mean, I'm not trying to play a game.
Yep.
My point is, obviously one project is a lot bigger than the other project. Are there certain ones where we can knock down 2?
There is
That's-
a potential to piggyback Prales Trail with Malibu Drive just because they are in the same vicinity.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the Prales Trail project, I was actually going to bring forward a proposal to the next Public Works Committee meeting as far as our storm projects for 2023. Prales Trail is in need of some repair due to some stormwater issues, similar to what we're dealing with up on 3rd Street Hill, where stormwater is actually penetrating the asphalt mat and getting underneath and washing some of the hillside out. And so I wanted to take care of that here this summer to shore that up before it gets as bad as 3rd Street Hill. So I was actually going to propose using some stormwater utility money to do a stretch of that road already, about 150 to 200 feet, kind of down. I don't know if you're familiar with Prales Trail at
Yes, I
all?
know.
Okay. So the
Street.
kind of the spot with the guardrail on the north side,
Yeah.
take care of that stretch. So if we were to take that project, use storm utility monies for that section, and then use the 326 to do kind of the top portion of Prales, Malibu, and the bottom portion of Trails, you could kind of do that whole area. That's one possibility where we could.
Okay.
Other than that, no. Each one of these projects would be,
Kind of standalone?
Yeah.
Well, and going back to what you mentioned, Sarah, the one by the high school, you could conceivably be the most traffic or safety traffic. Whereas, Malibu looks like it has the most homeowners that would be affected by that. Again, I'm just throwing out numbers here,
Yeah.
right? I'm just spinning the thing. But,
Yeah.
there's not one that stands out to me that which is why we're having this conversation, right?
I mean, the other road that is a 2 that I didn't add on the list, they're making me log in again, is Redwood Drive. So it is off of Hanley. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's off of Hanley Road, right? So if you're going past the post office,
Yeah.
you're heading south, you go past the water, you make that sharp 90-degree turn,
Yep.
Yeah,
okay? It's Redwood Drive is your first public street on the right. It's probably a 300-foot stretch of road
okay.
that services multi-unit plexes in
Oh,
that
yeah,
area.
Right by
okay.
the water tower.
Yeah, right by the water tower there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the other street in town, that's a 2.
Okay,
It's a 2, okay.
And that's close to Dominion Drive, so you could maybe, piggyback Dominion Drive with this one just because of the
Yeah.
proximity. And Dominion Drive is kind of a shorter stretch and it's a reclaim. I think that would probably be in the 250 to 300, so maybe you could,
Okay.
but
it did look like the Dominion, that looked like it was just from the drawing, is that the longest road? No, that Malibu and
Malibu
the,
is.
yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a bigger one. And there's no cost to the homeowners with this, because there's no curb and gutter
correct.
work, okay?
Yep, you are correct.
Could I ask you a question? Because when Mike and I first talked about this list, you had included 17th Street from Cooley north to the Laurel intersection, the
Yep.
north Laurel. And I told you that I would prefer that not to be on the list right now because it is so close to an elementary school. I want to make sure that when we do the work there, that it's very carefully engineered for safety. And if there's any, we do have a flashing light for a crosswalk there. And so I had some concerns about where 17th Street joins Cooley. So I asked you to remove it from the list for now because I thought, further planning. But what is the rating there on, you told me, I think, on the phone?
A 3.
It's a 3 there, okay, thank you.
Okay.
So we decided to hold off on that just because I do think that, I want to make sure it's engineered fully to bring any safety and amenities we can add.
And one point of clarification, just for the public, just because I might get called on this. So there are other streets with 2s, okay?
Okay,
Yeah.
3rd Street Hill,
and we're redoing that?
which is what we're doing.
Sure.
Okay. That chunk of commercial that we just discussed with the previous agenda item.
Okay.
That 1 block stretch.
And we're hoping for 2024 in that one?
Yep. Walnut Street, that goes up the hill behind Prospect Park,
Okay, yeah,
just on the side of City
Sure.
Hall. You
That's
go
a
up.
2?
That's a 2.
Yeah.
kind of quirky little,
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, with the one-way coming down,
Yeah.
that's a 2.
okay.
There's a section of Cole Street from 11th to 10th, and that's over by the Vine Street Sledding Hill, Vine Street Square. And then 9th Street is also a 2.
Nice, and that, we know that's too costly at the moment.
Yeah.
And the Walnut portion, why maybe that makes sense to wait on that is because there had been some hope that maybe that could be some kind of trail ultimately.
Yeah.
So we might want to mark it or
Right.
devise it a little
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah, and Dean had put Walnut Street as a full reconstruct, so there's some underground utilities
Yeah.
associated with
That would
that.
be big.
Because there's some water mains that are like from 1880. So,
Historic water mains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Hudson for you.
yep.
Museum. Air water mains.
That'd be a fundraiser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, is there a motion, that Sarah's motion, is that satisfactory to you right now? Again,
What
I
was
don't
the
think I
motion?
made a motion. I just said I said I was willing, I was willing to entertain a motion if somebody wanted to put one out there, or I understood the benefit of waiting and having this go in that planning meeting, as long as we were all in agreement that we think these ARPA funds should definitely go towards infrastructure.
yeah, I follow that. I almost feel that because of the response we got at our last city council meeting, I think for we'll say 3 or 4 of us to make a decision, this is exactly what we're doing. I think we're setting ourselves up for someone to, it should be questioned because we all have opinions. So for us to kind of narrow it down very tight right now, I think it's just we're gonna end up taking 3 steps back anyway.
Well, it's a
Yeah.
good opportunity for people who aren't on this committee, because like I said, we've learned a lot by sitting here and listening to Mike and our prior city engineer. We've all increased our knowledge exponentially, I would say,
Yep.
this last year, and we've had a chance with the development of the CIP that this is a year that we're talking and making these decisions as well. And so it would give the rest of the council a chance to sort of walk through that process with us too, and see, the variables and the factors we look at.
And Mike, I appreciate you telling us the other twos out there, and
Yeah.
I feel comfortable with the four. I mean, I think these are the
Yeah.
good, the right four to be looking at.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I agree with that.
So from what I'm hearing from the committee members, that you're all kind of in consensus to just maybe forward this along to a much larger discussion with the council so that you don't, like I said, set yourself up for failure in the future. If you just pick one and that's,
Right, because
Yeah.
I think we could all have our pet
Right.
street, and we know it would be wrong necessarily,
Right.
but
that makes sense.
at some point, someone has to.
Okay.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't throw off the timing and
Right.
Right.
construction process.
Yeah.
So should we have a motion that we bring it forward? I don't know how soon the schedule was going to allow this kind of discussion for council.
Yeah, I'm not
We don't
aware
be
of
together, what the next
when
few meetings are.
Aaron was
be
going to
like.
work on setting up a schedule, or setting up a meeting with
Yeah.
everyone based on their schedules.
I think he
Was
said he
it
was
going to
going
be
to.
separate from council?
Correct,
Maybe
yes.
a work session, okay.
Yep, I think he mentioned he was going to do a doodle poll for us to rate our availability. So I'll make the motion that the four streets, Dominion Drive, Pearls Trail, Malibu Drive, and Fillmore Street, move on to our special planning meeting regarding infrastructure priorities. Does that suffice?
Got a
I'll
motion?
second that.
We have a motion and a second that, after discussion, we understand the selection of these streets, but we prefer to discuss it with the full council at a special meeting that can be planned in the near future, and are committed to spending that ARPA money on one of these streets, one or more. So if there's any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
All right,
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion has been passed. Next item under new business, discussion, possible action to approve the request for qualifications for construction management services relating to public works facility construction.
Yep, so this is the next step in the process. At the previous Common Council meeting, you all approved the architectural and engineering design services with Cedar Corporations. And so what construction management service our team does is basically the building is designed, all the bidding documents are drafted, and then once that occurs, the construction management team takes all those documents and puts it through the bidding process. They also oversee the construction of the facility and handle all of the supervisory roles and responsibilities that come along with that. And then they help with any punch list items at the end, walkthroughs, so on and so forth. So this is the same type of system that our previous fire chief used when they did the fire station. One question that came up in some conversations is on the RFQ. If it's approved tonight, it would go out. I would contact firms tomorrow. There are firms throughout the area that do this type of service, so I would mail this directly to them. I would also have to post it in the newspaper and on our city
Okay.
website. But construction management at risk, so CMAR services. So there's construction management services, and then there's CMAR services. So there's two different types of construction management. What's the word I'm looking for?
Oversight?
Oversight, there you go, thank you. Okay, so construction management at risk is a firm would submit a lump sum dollar amount to the city, and then they would be, I looked it up, they would be legally responsible for delivering the project on time and at that budget. Where construction managers are working, it's hard to explain. Construction management, the normal construction management team, if we were to just say we're looking for construction management services, we hire a firm. They're working for the owner. They're not working in their best interest on the project. Where construction management at risk, they have some skin in the game to make sure that there's not any a lot of change orders coming through, and that the contracts that they're acquiring through subs falls in line with what the budget of the building is. So it kind of protects the city so that there's not overages over the budget that we're expecting. Did I explain that correctly? I
It's
don't.
kind of like an insurance.
It puts,
kind of?
yeah, it puts more of the liability of staying on time and on budget on the construction management team.
Okay.
They maybe bonded in a different way or something as well? It looked like the requirements
Yeah.
called, really were checking into any legal, if they've had any difficulties
Right.
in past projects, they're not going to be eligible.
Correct,
They have to
yeah.
be very
And
high-performing, high quality.
The CMAR services is the more common practice for larger projects.
Okay.
So based on your recommendation that you have here, the recommendation that's coming forward, that, I think is that different than what you just described to us? The risk one?
Nope,
Okay.
because in the recommendation, I just have the request for qualifications for construction management services. And then the attached document has, in the title it has construction management at-risk services for the City of Hudson Public Works Facility. So I'm
Okay.
comfortable. I mean, if you want to make in your motion to specify that, I, certainly do so.
Okay. Well, I just want to do what's best for protecting. Is
Yep.
that probably
CMAR then.
Yeah, yep.
CMAR?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So then in the schedule, if it's approved tonight, then I would issue the RFQ tomorrow. I would have those qualifications due February 2nd. We would hold interviews the following week, probably February 8th or 9th, depending upon availability of the firm. It would come back to Public Works Committee in February for final review and approval to select a firm to go with, and then it would go to Common Council thereafter.
So probably at the end of February to council?
Correct.
At large?
And it's important to bring a construction management team on early in the process because they help oversee some of the design aspects and relay feasibility or realistic feasibility of constructing what's being proposed by the architect, because sometimes there's a disconnect.
Yeah.
From talking with other municipalities, is they've had better success and better success when they're brought on board earlier, because if they don't, the architect does all this design work, they pass it off to the construction management team, and they're like, well, this doesn't make sense. And all of a sudden, you're getting change order, and we don't want that to happen.
Right, because that's expense.
Exactly.
Some of those similar buildings that you showed us a couple months ago, do you know specifically how they manage those builds? And I mean, would you be able to reach, I think your building has some specific needs rather than just, one's a library, one's a school. I mean, you have some specific needs. Is there any way to filter through there and get, to send this RFP out to someone that has specific experience with these types of buildings rather than just general construction?
Right. Yeah, I would certainly reach out to. I actually have kind of started compiling a list of the construction managers that have worked on those facilities,
Okay.
and I would certainly target those.
Cool.
Yep, those firms.
Right, and you sought input when you were trying to select an architectural firm
Yeah.
too, or a consultant.
Yep, same thing.
Same thing went to who has done a public works building in the region and done it successfully.
Yep.
If city's happy with them, so that's a good way of kind of screening people. I agree, Mike.
All right.
I'll move to approve the RFQ for construction management specifically at risk for the Public Works facility.
And I will second that.
Okay, we have a first and second that we go ahead with advertising for the RFQ. And is there any further discussion? Any other comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that has passed. That'll be great. It's excited that the project's moving forward. That's going to be a good, and you're going to tell us a little bit about the schedule that you have outlined for the
Yes.
the year for this project for the next 2 years. So, but let's take our last new business item, Public Works Department Staffing Operations. So I brought this item up to Mike as our Public Works Director, that I think about all of the areas that the Public Works Department, and hence our committee, is involved with in town, not necessarily just the streets and infrastructure, but actually lighting. I probably used to think that, XL Energy took care of the lighting. What poles are really city property, and that you have staff that do that. You have staff, I know you had mentioned that during the snowstorm event, it went on for several days last week, that at least one traffic pole got knocked down, and so drivers had to get off the trucks and go address that, because there's certain staff that have different roles to play. And I asked Mike to just give us an overview to help us understand the department and how things work there, and also tell us a little bit about your background as well before you came to Hudson and your experience.
Yep. No
Take
problem.
it away.
No problem. So I've been in local government now since 2005, so almost 18 years coming up this summer. Started out working for the city of Wabasha, Minnesota, on their street department, as well as I was going to graduate school for recreation management. So had several years of experience working out in the field, which I find to be very valuable when I'm talking to the crew. I can understand where they're coming from, some of the issues that they have. I can relate to them because I was in their shoes for several years. And I find that to be very, very helpful as I continue to supervise them. So after that, I became the park superintendent down for the city of Wabasha, and was there for about 3-4 years before I moved on to New Richmond as the Public Works Operations Manager. There for about 3 years before Mr. Tom Zuley retired here and the position opened up, and I applied and luckily landed a job here. So I've been here since 2018, so like I said, almost 5 years now, and love working here. Great community, great support from Public Works Committee, Council, great staff to work with, and so Joy wanted to kind of give me an update on the staff, and so for the public to kind of just have an idea of what the department oversees, how many people we have working for us, and so on and so forth. So the Public Works Department oversees, and parks, it oversees a lot of different things. So obviously streets, parks, we have urban forestry, we have stormwater, we have facilities. And so with that being said, we have 14 full-time staff working in the Public Works Department. Deb Andrews is the assistant. I have 2 facility maintenance staff, full-time maintenance staff, one for City Hall and one for 700 First Street building, which is the library and police department. And then I have 11 full-time employees up at the Public Works shop, including a street foreman, mechanic, and then all of the remaining staff has various roles that they have been kind of given to kind of keep some sort of assembly of a go-to person in case an emergency does happen. So we have a person that deals strictly with stormwater. So they deal with all the inspections and reporting, infrastructure, any maintenance that happens to the stormwater system. I have a person specifically for traffic signal repairs, actually 2 employees, because sometimes you need 2 employees to handle some of the equipment and so on and so forth. So they take care of all the traffic signals, street lighting knockdowns. They take care of locating in the summertime, spring, summer, fall during construction season, locating underground utilities for the city.
Okay.
So all the calls for Diggers Hotline get passed along to them. They have to go out and locate all of our underground infrastructure. So we're also
I thought that was XL Energy, so.
They do electric and gas.
Okay.
So, yep.
Okay.
And then we have individuals that are specifically working in the Parks Department, Urban Forestry Department, patching potholes, striping, crosswalks, so on and so forth. So kind of everybody has a specific role, so they know that kind of what they're doing every day. There are obviously times when we're pulling staff from off of one project because of an emergency in another area, but with the staff that we have, they're all able to do each other's jobs. And so it's been, like I said, it's been great staff to work with. And on top of that, we have seasonal help throughout the spring, summer, fall, and winter. We hire seasonals to help with street sweeping, mowing, rounds, pavilions, athletic fields, dragging, gardening, forestry, lifeguards. So there'll be, during the summer months, we can have anywhere from, 20 to 40 additional seasonal staff on helping maintain our community. So that kind of gives you an overview of the staff. So the annual our annual public works budget is approximately $2.1 million. The annual parks budget is approximately $460,000 to $500,000. Our annual storm budget is $535,000, and then our facilities budget is about $200,000. So you're looking at $3.5 million total operating budget that I oversee, and so that's supervise our approving expenditure, staff coming to me based on our availability of monies that we have remaining in the budget. If we do a project here, a project there, kind of buy more paint for striping roads, can we have more porta potties at this park, and so on and so forth. So I oversee all of those expenditures and make sure that we're staying within budget. And so sometimes it's out of our control based on the number of knockdowns or hit and runs that we have on traffic signals. Obviously, if we get a lot of snow, a lot of overtime being paid out, salt, so on and so forth. So each year it fluctuates, but generally, we're trying to hit those target numbers that were approved by Finance and Common Council. So that's kind of my update. If you want to know anything more specifically, obviously,
It's a lot.
reach out to me. Yep.
Yeah, that's a lot that you're in charge of, and I am always amazed to hear that you're taking phone calls when residents have a comment, question, or concern, complaint, that you actually directly deal with those, as well as Deb Andrews, your assistant. But there have been times when you've manned the office by yourself, and I'm pretty amazed by that, so I don't know how you get it all done. But obviously, you've got a very good staff,
Yeah.
and I like the way you manage them, that they do have an area of expertise and, can be kind of the lead person there.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that works out great.
Yep.
So, and you said you had your master's was in Parks and Rec?
Yep. Recreation management.
Yes,
Yep.
okay, so it was some management component, because you certainly are in a manager role now. Anyway, well, thanks, I just thought that would be of interest for us to kind of talk about some of the other areas that our committee actually does supervise. So at that point, we're going to go on to old business, because that was not an action item, just a discussion, unless, did you have something you wanted to say, Sarah?
No, I'm just always grateful, especially when the roads are plowed. I'm even more grateful.
Yes.
I'm grateful all the time, though, for the work that you guys do, but I really notice it then.
Yes.
A lot of snow, that's for sure. Did you
When
have any
we're
other
home
comment?
safe in our house at 4 a.m. and you hear the plows rumbling by, you think,
Yes.
that doesn't just happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
So
thanks,
thank
Mike.
you.
For sure.
Yep.
Absolutely. Does anyone have an old business item they wanted to bring forward?
On here.
Okay, if not, then we've got a list of a few project updates, and if anyone has any other questions, they can bring them forward. But Mike, why don't you
Yeah.
work your way through that list?
Yep, I'll rifle through these. So the first project update is the 701st Street storm damage repairs. So this is stemming back from the windstorm that we had
September?
September of 2021.
Yeah.
And so we haven't closed the project out yet. A lot of delays in construction materials have kind of pushed this project further and further along. We are waiting on one more window to be replaced in the library. It sounds like it's going to come in within the next couple of weeks, and once that's installed, project would be able to be closed out. We do have a small punch list put together with just some minor items, some paint touch-ups, so on and so forth. So the contract total for that project was $1,336,222, so $1.3 million. And to date, we've been expensed $1,067,001. So there is an outstanding balance of $269,220. Now, excuse me, hold on, I gotta grab some water.
Well, that's another comment, is when natural disasters happen, we mentioned snowstorms.
Yeah.
But that straight line wind event,
Yeah.
added a tremendous amount of work, because it's a facility that our Public Works Director manages. Because I was also relating to someone else, Mike, that one time this summer, I wanted to talk with you or meet about something, and you said, well, I'll have to wait a few days because you had 2 full days booked with an insurance adjuster after the big hailstorm that happened in May, that you spent 2 full days going around to every city building, looking at the roofs or siding, whatever, to evaluate for. So any sort of natural event, but that definitely falls in your
Yeah.
office then.
Yep, if there's storms, it's on my lap. So, to pick up back at what I was discussing is that we are going to come in under budget on that contract total because of that $269,000 that's outstanding. $99,000 was for contingency, and then we've come in under budget on some other items, just based on construction costs and the time that it took to do some of those repairs. Needless to say, this is all passed through to the insurance company anyways. So, I mean, but I'm glad that, Market and Johnson was our construction manager on the repairs, and they did a great job staying under budget, and I know the insurance company appreciates that aspect. So, any questions on that? Like I said, that one's going to be wrapping up here, hopefully within the next month or two.
Last mile of the marathon.
Yeah, exactly. The staying at 700 First Street, the chiller replacement that was in the 2021 CIP still hasn't been installed yet. Just met with the contractor that the city hired, Yale Mechanical, last week. They did a walkthrough, and again, delays in production with the chiller. They actually have it on hand now. And so they came to do some final measurements, and the idea is to have them scheduled to replace the current chiller by the time the heating or the cooling season starts. So we're kind of targeting mid-March to April, somewhere in that timeline based on what their schedule availability is. So we had $120,000 in the CIP to replace this unit. The low bid came back at $133,000.
I'm sorry, what was that difference? So what was the proposed?
So we had budgeted 120.
Oh, it came back at
Low
133.
bid came at 133.
Okay.
So when that bid was approved, we were using monies that came in under budget for the city hall kind of maintenance project that we came in under budget, and we forwarded $13,000 to cover that difference. And that's how we were able to make up that difference. So needless to say, I'm excited to get this one off the plate. It's been on there for a couple of years, and it's just kind of been pushed off. And so we'll have a brand new unit down there. The one down there is obviously 25 years old, I believe, 24, 25 years old, and it screams really, really loud when it's in use. So this will be more efficient, a lot quieter for the neighborhood, and do a great job for that building for the years to come.
And that's for the whole building?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, for the whole building. So, any questions on that one? Okay. Hail storm damage repairs. So this was from the hailstorm that we had earlier this summer. I just finalized the expense summary with the insurance company. So we had 200. It was the original repair invoice or estimate was $202,000. We did run into some issues with some damage insulation at the East Public Works shop. The flat roof, some of the insulation, water had penetrated and started to mold the insulation, so we had to replace the 2 inches of insulation. So that was a change order. So it came out to $252,000 with the change order. Obviously, again, this is all passed through to the insurance company. We did receive a payment of $116,000 right up front. So the outstanding balance was $140,000. So like I said, I just compiled all the invoices and expense summary and sent that off to the insurance adjuster just after the holiday here. And so we should be getting a check back to replenish our coffers.
Okay.
And like I said, like Joyce said, that was Buckeye Garage, the band shell, it was the bathhouse. There was some damage up at the library with some skylights, the East Public Works shop, Burton Park restroom, and then the water department also had 2 facilities that needed repairs. It was more centrally located down in the historical part of the city. We did, like Joyce said, did tour all of our buildings, and we didn't really find much damage up on top of the hill. So that was very interesting to see.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah. That
Yep,
was the same with the straight line winds.
right.
I mean, when they came through, nothing up there, and
Yep. In the it's interesting, the city's insurance company, obviously there's a threshold, cosmetic versus structural.
Yeah.
And we could have replaced a lot of roofs up on top of the hill that were more cosmetic damage. But once you make a claim on that roof and it happens again, they're not covered.
okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
and that's kind of why we went the way that we did and just did the ones that were structural and not cosmetic. Any questions on that one? Okay. And then the last one that I have is the public works schedule. So I put together, underneath your agenda at your station there, I kind of put together just a rough timeline of future schedule for the public works facility. Now, obviously, like I had put down, these aren't set in stone. They may change based on some approvals or discussions that are had at either the Public Works or Finance or Common Council that might push things around. The also thing I want to point out that I'm still reaching out to Cedar Corp to confirm kind of a set schedule that they have in mind and kind of compare it with what I have. But in a perfect world, this is what we would be following. So this includes, the RFQ that was just approved tonight. So then it jumps forward to the interviews for the construction management services. And then at our next Public Works Committee meeting, we would be approving the CM. And we would also have Cedar Corporations here for some preliminary discussions on the facility to just kind of introduce that team and then get any feedback that you might have or that they might need of you at that February meeting. So it kind of goes down, I don't know if you want me to walk through everything, but at least it kind of gives you a rough timeline. Obviously, the goal is to have this thing bid out by, bids back by late June, with approvals coming in July, and then finalizing contracts in August and September with site work starting October, November, and then complete construction the following year in 2024.
So the construction manager will actually be the one getting the bids?
Correct.
So you won't have to be doing all that and contacting and
Right.
sorting through them like you do on other projects?
Correct, yes.
That's great, but then they come to you or come to us? Will we be looking at those bids, or?
They
Not
would
really?
make recommendations to us.
Okay.
Yep,
When you say us, do you mean city staff or to the Public Works?
Public Works Committee.
Okay,
Yep,
perfect.
yep. So what happens in a project this scale is there's work categories. All right, so there's HVAC, there's concrete, there's electrical, there's plumbing, and so basically they have a room and they have a wall with like 20 numbers on it, and each number is a work category. And a subcontractor will submit a bid for work category number one. Work category, and then based on those work categories, they look at the bids that are received, what the low bid is, and then what the whether or not that their calculations are correct, and then they basically compile all that list together. Here you go, City of Hudson, this is what the bid was, these are all the work categories, the numbers that we got back, and then we go from there.
Yeah. So there's a prime, and then there's like the tiers
Yeah,
underneath that.
correct,
Yep.
yep.
Good to have someone else managing that
Oh.
wall of details.
Yeah.
Well, one thing too, I think is important that, and I'm glad that our committee is going to be involved in it, because this is a very major expenditure. As we've talked about, it's sort of a legacy generational building. And bearing in mind that Cedar Corp they are both our architects, and they did the consulting study several years ago to look at our facilities and to give us an update on what we might do to improve or how woefully short we are. And at that time, even 2 years ago, they predicted $12 million to build what they thought we needed. And we're trying to be conservative and careful, and so at this point, we have a CIP for $9 million. There may be some difficult decisions and discussions to have with, Mike has a vision, and his foreman, Kevin Soltis, they've visited these other buildings in other cities, and what we might be able to do here, and can we afford it, and what scale, and all of that, because there may be some difficult decisions about what we can do, and we'll certainly be a part of that discussion. I don't know what that was.
I hope,
You okay in
you're all
there?
right?
All right,
They
we're
fall
good. We're
over.
adjourned.
Yeah, we just want to make sure you were good.
It's good.
Wake up.
Anyway,
Don't sleep, yeah.
so that, it'll be good for us to be involved in that, because while we're not going to understand, this construction material versus that one, as an expert would, we may be involved in some decisions or going back to the council to say realistically, we need more funding than this. I don't know. We're going to do our best.
And that's the benefit of having a construction manager, is because if we do have those questions, building material A versus building material B, they'll be able to answer that for us and make their recommendation based on what the unit costs are. And this is, unit cost for this is what the total cost, and we can compare and contrast, and we can make decisions moving forward with the facility to keep it, on budget.
Because we don't want to short sight the future. We want to build that adequate building to meet the needs going forward in the years ahead. So it'll be interesting, it'll be challenging, but look forward to that.
Hopefully it'll be our great-grandchildren making those decisions.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for putting that schedule together. None of those items required any voting. Is there any other discussion on those updates or questions for Mike?
Nope, not for me.
Okay, so I do have one item. It is I that is requesting a change for the next meeting. We're normally scheduled for, let's see, would it be February 13th? And I was going to propose if we could possibly meet on February 15th that week, a Wednesday. And if you don't know the answer now, you can come back to me about it.
Actually, I had reached out to Mike so I could have an answer for you, so I'd reached out on the date. I can do that. I will be coming from the cities, so I will definitely be coming in hot that date. So if you want to start, and just know I could be a few minutes late, I will do my best to be here at 5, but I could be a few minutes behind.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, what was the date again?
February 15th, it's a Wednesday.
All right.
Well, I appreciate
Yeah, I'm
that,
open
Sarah. And the commute, I mean, we could,
I'd be open to do it
yeah.
5:30 if that's,
I hate to do that to our lovely department head.
true.
So if you're okay, just knowing I'm going to be coming in under the wire. I know,
I
I
appreciate
do,
that.
I do. That's why I'm sticking at 5. I will do my best to be here at 5.
Want to do 5 a.m.?
Hey, there we go.
I'll do that. Is that better for you?
15th works.
Early riser, huh?
Okay, 15th works.
Is 15th, okay, and we'll go with 5 PM. Thank you. I mean, if there's a major storm event or something, we could, but we do need to post the start time, so
Yeah.
thank you. Appreciate your consideration for that.
Absolutely. Just for future, I wonder, thinking about the storms and everything, just wondering about flooding for the spring and kind of what your thoughts are on that, but that can definitely be on the future agenda.
Okay?
Do you plan on having a flood, Mike?
Look at all the snow.
I know. I just didn't know if Mike turned a big valve or not.
It's funny because obviously working in, and I don't want to take up a lot of time here, working in Wabasha, we had flooding concerns down there as well, being on the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
And there were years where, like now, where lots of snow, tons of snow, and everybody's predicting it's going to be the worst flood since 1965, and then all of a sudden, we get a good, nice freeze cycle,
Yeah.
and you get a little,
Gradual. It's
yeah,
gonna
and then all of a
depend
sudden
on
it's
that.
like, it was nothing. It's like, well, there was all this panic. So obviously, we're going to keep our eye on it moving
Yeah.
forward, and just see what type of precipitation we do get in, March, April. But
Pray for the perfect thaw,
Yep,
freeze.
exactly,
Thaw,
yes.
freeze.
Right?
Yeah.
Let it melt slowly.
you
Okay.
don't need
Oh.
2 feet of snow in late March and then rain
Right.
showers in early April. That would be not good.
Okay. We'll start working with Mother Nature
Yes.
now.
No, it's on order. One other item I wanted to mention too on the update, we had talked about the Safe Streets for All proposal, and there's no word back yet from the
Right.
county on that. So that is where we had budgeted some funds to piggyback on that program, and we don't know whether they've been accepted yet into the program.
And if we hear anything or any updates, can that just be on the next agenda then too, if there's any updates?
Yes, absolutely. We'll do that.
I'll make a note.
Okay, very good. Any other comments, suggestions?
I'll move to adjourn then.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and second for adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Second. Opposed, same sign? We are adjourned. Thank you very much. Appreciate the
Thanks.
meeting.
Thank you.